My name is Alphabet,
My name is Justus Phillips,
and you listen to Power Your Story.
a podcast from Rayground Training Center High School in Chicago.
This season, our thing is standing up for what you believe, social justice, change, and making a difference.
Today we are talking over Skype with Animator and director Mike Owens.
Mike is the creator of Danger and Eggs and an Animator series for kids on Amazon Prime. Thank you for listening.
Peace.
My name is Justus Phillips and welcome to Power Your Story. Say hello, Mike.
Hello.
Alright, first question. Tell us about Danger and Egg. How did you come up with the idea for it?
Okay, so Danger and Eggs started out as just the egg, was Philip the safety egg. I was thinking about all the things I was afraid of as a kid and wanted to come up with a character who was sort of walking, talking fear and really fragile and afraid of everything. So it seemed like an egg was the best choice because he's fragile, he's very nervous, but he's also prepared. He knows first aid. He knows how to protect himself and others because my mother was a nurse. So she taught me about all the things that were scary in the world, but also how to prepare and take care of myself. That's the basic idea. And then we added Dee Dee Danger later when we needed a best friend character for Philip, who is the complete opposite of Philip. She's just crazy, dangerous, doing whatever she wants. So Philip's there to sort of make sure she doesn't crack like an egg.
It was amazing.
Oh, thanks.
How do you make it so funny?
Ooh, that's a hard question. Well, one, I think the guy, Eric Noble, who does the voice of Philip, and A.D. Bryant, who does the voice of Dee Dee, they, as actors, they bring a lot of just the way the characters talk is really funny. But a lot of stuff that's funny for me comes from real stories. Like everyone who's helping write the show brings up their own stories about being afraid or trying crazy things or what it's like to have a best friend. And you tell your own stories and you can laugh about them. Other people are going to relate to that and laugh back as well.
Lovely. How did you get the show on Amazon Prime?
That took 6 years. So it came with like the basic idea, like I was explaining with Philip and Dee Dee. And we put together what's called a pitch, which is basically just like a presentation of these are the characters, this is the show that we want to make, these are the kind of stories we want to tell. And you showed around to different networks. We showed it to Amazon, we showed it to Cartoon Network, we showed it to Nickelodeon. And if they are interested in the show, then they will basically buy the idea and have money for you to make it. So we got turned down a lot. We failed a lot in 6 years. And we improved the show each time. So find out what people didn't like, what they did like, but everyone always liked the characters, but is it going to be a show? We had to convince people that this could be a show that everyone would watch. So 6 years of failing, but it finally happened. So we were persistent and we kept trying.
That's good, even though it was 6 years.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Does Danger and Egg have a specific message for kids?
Yeah, I think it does. You guys watched the first episode, right?
Yeah.
When they have like their secret handshake and they say, you look out for me and I'll look out for you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's that. Like it really comes down to like Philip and Dee Dee are opposite people, opposite characters. One's crazy and dangerous. One's very nervous and afraid. But they don't judge each other for that. They got each other's back, basically. So whatever happens, they know that the other friend is going to be there for them, even though they're very different. So their secret handshake, you look out for me and I'll look out for you, I think is the biggest message.
That's a good message.
Oh, thanks.
Hello, Mike.
Hello.
How did you draw your character? Does start with pen and paper?
The first time I drew Philip was just a bunch of pencils and some scrap paper that I had lying around. All of my thinking happens on paper. It's like regular drawing tools. It's just very easy, straightforward to just, here's a piece of paper, here's a pencil, and then I can think when I draw. When it comes to actually making the show, that's all done on the computer, even the drawing part. We have these monitors called Cintiqs, which looks like a computer monitor, but there's a digital pen, like, like the iPad pen. It's like that, basically, so that we can still draw, but it's right into the computer, so it makes the production go faster. It just makes it easier to add the color and add the sound and add the music. But I learned on drawing paper. That's how I've always done it. And using digital just makes the show easier to make. Not that it's easy, but it just more efficient, I'll say.
How many people work together to create a cartoon?
So our show was done in 3 different cities. We did part of the production here in St. Paul, Minnesota, part of it in Los Angeles, and a big part of it was done in South Korea. So if you count all the people together, from, the artists to the people at Amazon to the people in South Korea, there's probably about 300 people on our show. But, my wife, Wendy, and I are making a film right now that's just the 2 of us, and we're making it, in a room in our house. So the less people you have, either it takes longer to do or you tell shorter stories. But having 300 people allowed us to make 26 Danger and Eggs episodes in 9 months. And if you watch any Pixar movie or any feature animation, just watch the credits at the end. It goes on forever. If you ever watch those, it takes a lot of people.
Okay, when did you start drawing? How did you get into animation?
I started drawing, I don't know, I was probably pretty young. Everyone sort of draws when they're a kid. My sister was a really good artist, so she was very encouraging to be around. So always kind of drawing, always, I'm still learning, honestly. I've been doing it for 23 years, but I draw every day. That's a big part of animation, is just drawing every day and getting your basic skills down. And I got into animation, basically I studied film and movies in college. I went to school in Chicago, at Columbia College in Chicago, and that's where I finished my studies in animation. So still continuing my basic art skills, learning about how to tell a story. And then I got my first job in Chicago, and you learn a lot in animation by just making things. I don't necessarily know everything I'm ever going to know, and I don't think I ever will, but by making something, that's really how I got into it. So by working on other people's projects or working on commercials or TV shows, learn by doing. I could think about it forever, but until I actually do it. So it was studying animation and making animation was how I did it.
What was your favorite cartoon growing up?
That's a hard one too. I would have to say it's, and I don't know if any of you guys are going to know, well, you'll know some of them, but Tom and Jerry was a big one. I watched a lot of Looney Tunes and Droopy, the dog. You guys know Droopy? You should know Droopy. Droopy's funny. He's like a super sad dog, but everything goes his way. Those old 30s cartoons is what I watched. But, Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, all that stuff. Still like it.
Is Danger and Egg the first cartoon you made?
It's the first show that I made that's like a show on TV. I've worked on a lot of TV shows. Like I've worked on Animaniacs, a little bit of Tiny Toons back in the late 90s. I've worked on a lot of commercials, like for Lucky Charms and the Trix Rabbit and all those cereal commercials. I've done a lot of that. I've made some short films for myself and for some others, but I have a co-creator, Shadi Petoskey, who I used to work for here in Minnesota. But this is the first one that's ever mine as a show on TV.
Cool.
That's what I think.
Who is your favorite character you ever created?
Philip the safety egg. Like we told you, it took me 6 years to get Amazon to buy it, but I've been thinking about him for probably 10. And there's something about it, because he's basically me. I was afraid of everything as a kid, like everything, water, bugs, dirt. I was just paranoid and full of anxiety all the time. So to have this character that it's okay that he's an anxious guy and he's figuring it out, and people like this character, and it's a way to sort of get that stuff out of my own head and have fun with it and put it out into the world and tell stories with it. And I just love Philip, and people really seem to like him as well. And I just think he's gonna, hopefully he'll keep going.
I hope so too.
Thanks, me too.
How do you make money in animation?
Usually it's either work for a studio, like I said, it takes a bunch of people to make any kind of animation. So my first job, I was just drawing, I was just doing the animation. So you either work for a studio who's making commercials, who pays the studio, to pay all of us. You can also be freelance, where I go out and try to find people who need animation. And that's tougher. People do it, but it's nice to sort of work for a place that's finding the jobs and the projects and the cartoons to make for you. Otherwise, you're sort of just out there hustling, trying to find any kind of work. And then you got to do the work, which takes a lot of time. But yeah, finding those people who have money and want to pay you to draw cartoons, it's tricky.
What do you love the most about making cartoons?
There's a lot of things. One of the things I like is, or love, I should say, is I tried to be an actor at one point, and I'm not very good at it. I get very nervous on stage. I could do it, but I'm not the best. But with a character like Philip and like being able, you can kind of act through your characters and be bigger than yourself in these characters. It's like being an actor, you can kind of control, make them tell and act and be any way that you want. Even though I said it took like 300 people to make the show, essentially I could make and tell a story by myself with animation if I wanted to. So I like that sort of control, to be able to control every bit of the world and tell any story that I want.
What the hardest thing about your work?
Oh, one was the trying to find people to pay you. That's hard. But there's a lot of competition for it, because there's people that draw way better than me looking to try to find the same thing. So the hardest thing is just always improving, always learning, and not letting my ego get the best of me when I do good things, and not letting my failures get me down, because like I said, it took 6 years of failing to get the show. So it's a lot of work. I mean, there's things that are satisfying, otherwise I wouldn't do it. But I think the hardest thing is just never being satisfied with like just knowing one thing and just being a student forever, basically, in a good way.
Yeah, I'm still in this school. So
Yeah, I learn forever. I'm not in school, but I teach myself, or just, learn from other people still constantly.
what is your opinion of cartoons in general nowadays?
I think it's a really good time for cartoons. There's a lot more cartoons being made, different stories being told, different people being represented in cartoons. And we tried to do that in ours as much as possible. I just feel like there's more stories being told, more places to show cartoons. I'd like to keep moving forward where we're telling stories that aren't being told through animation, about people that aren't having their stories told in animation, but I feel like that's happening right now. So I think it's actually better than when I started. There's more options. There's more TV channels. There's more, Amazons and Netflix and all that sort of stuff to put your work out into the world. And the tools of computers have made it possible to do some pretty amazing things. So
how do you think cartoons make a difference in people's lives?
I think that's a good question. Cartoons have a way of sort of sticking with you. They sort of stick in your memory your whole life. Like I was just watching a cartoon this morning that I remember watching as, when I was 5 years old, and how that's always sort of part of me. Cartoons have a way of sort of getting deeper into your mind and staying there. And I think, it makes a difference in people's lives. And one of the things we tried to do in Danger and Eggs is representing people that you don't see in cartoons very much, because there's something about just seeing yourself on the screen that without making a big deal about it, you're like, oh yeah, you see that. And like in Danger and Eggs, when you watch more episodes, we have an African-American woman mayor. It's not a story. It's just like, this is how the world is. Let's watch this world. So I think animation lets you sort of do things that maybe regular movies can't do, where you can sort of play a little bit further, you can push a little bit further, and you can make any world that you want.
What did you plan on making next? Any new cartoons?
Yeah, there's always something next. I'm always working on something. My wife Wendy and I are currently making a short 5-minute film to put into film festivals, and I'm gonna go pitch some new ideas. I'm gonna start that 6-year cycle of trying to make some new shows and see if anyone wants those. But I've got about 4 or 5 things that I'm working on. I'm working with a guy on a kids show called Lalo's Lunchbox, like a preschool show about good food and sharing food. And then I'm working on an idea called Monkey and Car. It's about a monkey and a car that are best friends, and they're trying to fly to the moon. It's a weird one, but it's super fun. My wife and I are also trying to make a new show about a woman who's a knight, There's a show that I'm working on with a guy about a talking ukulele. Always something, always something. And then I'm helping a couple students make films right now too.
I'm really a big fan of animation, and I always want to ask this. So you told me it took 6 years to like get your show Danger Eggs to run, right?
Yeah.
So how long does it take for like a cartoon movie? Because I know a lot of like sketches, there's a lot of going on like building ideas. So say for instance, so someone who's willing to draw or animate, what advice do you have knowing they're getting frustrated with this constant like trouble of not getting my show running?
Yeah, it's not easy, but it's being persistent and like knowing that if you love something, you love doing something, that never goes away. And those times that it definitely works, where someone laughs or someone cries because of something you drew or animated, that really carries you through, because it's that you're communicating to another person something that was in your mind. You're making them feel a certain way. So you sort of remember the moments when it worked and know that, it's going to work again. And that love can never be completely squashed. So even when it gets hard, and it does, and you want to quit, like I want to walk away a lot sometimes because it's so much work and it takes so much time. And sometimes I have to walk away, like go take a walk or just not do it for a week or so, and just think about something else so that my brain reset. But then you sort of push through those roadblocks. Someone described it to me as when you're learning something or trying to get better, he used to think it was like climbing a hill like this, but it's actually this, where you come and then you get to a stopping point and you don't feel like you can go any further. And then all of a sudden something makes sense to you and you jump up a step, and then you do it again, and then you hit another roadblock. And then you fight, and then you jump up again. So it's steps more than it is an incline. So you're this good, then some light goes on, now you're this good, and you work at that for a while. So it can be super frustrating, and I've thrown pencils across the room and crumpled up papers and screamed and all that kind of stuff, but I do love doing it, and I love that I can get people to feel and respond to something that I drew. So that's pretty satisfying.
Yeah, that does, because unlike times where I feel like every time I draw something, I just instantly crumb up the paper.
Yeah.
Because you literally say you're the biggest critic yourself when it comes to your drawing. And it's just like you get so frustrated, like you never know how do you do it. It's like every cartoonist, every animator, animation has just been so wonderful. Like, how do you do it? And knowing you say you got to be persistent, it just it fills me up with hope and knowing I can.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, just being around other people that do it, and because it can be, when you're by yourself drawing, I get sort of stuck in my own head sometimes. But when you're around other people that you're making stuff with, it really boosts you and it really sort of gets you going. And that's why I say making a thing and letting an audience watch it. And even if one person gets it and everyone else hates it, that one person is enough.
Oh, yeah, because I know yourself is a critic and other people's a critic.
Always will be.
Yeah.
You're just being true to your voice and doing the work. For years, I used to start every day by just drawing circles, just so that I could draw a perfect circle without using, any kind of template or anything. It's like hand-eye coordination if you're learning to play a sport, like what your brain's telling you to do and what your hand is doing to throw the ball right or whatever. It's the same thing with drawing. It becomes practice, it's repetition, it's programming your mind to focus on the skill that it takes. And like I said, I'll be learning forever. I'm better than I was 10 years ago, and I'm hoping in 10 years I'll be better than I am now.
Yeah, I really hope you get to the big screens like Danger and Eggs movie or like something.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I think kids nowadays should watch Danger Eggs. Being an inspiring person, know you can draw like a lot of things. Yeah, so I hope you make it to like Disney or Nickelodeon someday.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'll keep trying. I hope you do too.
Yeah, just never stop drawing.
You either.
Where can people learn more about your work and watch your show?
I have a website for my own work. It just has a little bit of stuff on it. It's MikeOwensProductions.com. And then if you go to Amazon, you have to have an Amazon Prime account to watch all the episodes. But Amazon Prime, you can watch all 26 Danger and Eggs episodes. If you want to see other stuff I've did you guys watch Yo Gabba Gabba when it was out? You guys might be too old for that, like, because it was more of a preschool show. I don't know. That was a show that we worked on for a long time. We did like talking trees and flowers and rocks, and it's like I don't know. You have to see it. Look it up. Yo Gabba Gabba. It's kind of fun. But yeah, Amazon's a place to see Danger and Eggs, and then MikeOwensProductions.com is to see a little bit of my stuff.
What advice do you have for someone who wants to get into animation?
The best advice I can give is to make animation. There's lots of tutorials, some free software to learn how to make it. But I feel like, and I was talking about this earlier, just learn by doing. So you watch other cartoons, you see how they do it. You can try to imitate it, or you just you want to do something that's never been seen before is always better. So study it, draw a lot. Like I said, I'm still not as good as I want to be. And I've been doing it for 24, 25 years professionally, drawing as a kid before that. But honestly, when I tell my own students this, is to make something. It may not be perfect, but you'll learn so much by just going through the process. And then the next thing you make is going to be better. And you go and you read some books on animation, or you watch some tutorials, or you talk to people that do it, and you find out how they solve that problem, and then you apply it to the next project that you do. So make something, and then make another thing, and then make another thing.
I'm a creator too.
Awesome.
I'm trying to be an artist too, but I'm terrible.
Nah, no, you're learning. That's what it is. That's how I understand. You're your worst critic, right? Like, you look at your own artwork and you're like, but I was always told you have 10,000 bad drawings inside of you and you have to get them out. So draw and get them out.
Yeah, I work on my projects as well. I kind of work on a video game called Cartoon Crisis that I really enjoy doing. I'm trying to make the story.
Cool. What's the story about?
It's kind of wonky to me. I'm still trying to think of the story.
Yeah, the hardest thing is to be able to tell what your story is in one sentence. Is very hard for me. I spend a lot of time practicing because there's so much going on when you're creating stuff that's in your head. To be able to explain it to another person, I always find very difficult. So that's what I like, where I can just draw it and say, here's what I mean. This is an egg that talks. You can sort of get it across. There's a whole world in my head.
There's a whole world in my head too.
Who taught you how to make cartoons?
A lot of people taught me how to make cartoons. I'd first taught myself there was one book in the library in my hometown on animation, and I would just check that out of the library. I think I was the only person who did. And then, just different teachers who knew more than I did. I learned some drawing from my sister, but animation itself was, there's those teachers that you never sort of forget. And I think there's probably 4 or 5 of those. And then I learned a lot from people that are doing the same thing that I'm doing, because they had their own sort of journey to get to the same place that I was. And how did they draw? How did they solve problems? So people that are better than me at the time is actually an interesting way to learn, because it pushes me a little bit harder. Now I'm trying to share that knowledge with people that are starting. So learn from anyone and everyone I can. Even if it's not animation, I learned from someone about music. I apply that to animation.
Is there anything else you want to share with us today?
Probably. It is hard when you suddenly have to think of it all. I think if you want to be a storyteller of any kind, whether it's animation or not, animation is what I know. If, maybe it's just making a comic book or making a video or making, whatever it is to be a storyteller, the best thing to do is to just start doing it. And I still think you guys are doing a lot of that work right now. There's so many good ways to record and share your stories right now that there wasn't 20 years ago. And I think the world needs to hear everyone's stories, because that's really how people get along a little bit better, when they can see the world from someone else's point of view. And the way to do that is to show that point of view as a storyteller.
Thank you for being on Power Your Story.
Thank you, Mike, for being here, and thank you for the advice. We keep it to our hearts.
Thank you very much. It was nice to meet all of you, and thanks for asking good questions. It's fun to talk about this stuff, so I hope you got something out of it.
Power Your Story podcast is produced by students at Ray Grant Training Center High School in Chicago.
With production support from After School Matters and the Creative Impostor Studios.
Today I brought to go back.
Justus Phillips.
Malik Daniel.
Aaliyah Rich. You can find our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music, and PowerYourStoryPodcast.com.
We are on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Power Your Story Podcast.
Follow us, subscribe, leave a review or comment, and share our show with a friend.
Thank you for listening, and see you later, alligators.
Turn up all the way.